Again, I'm Jeff Catula, president of the Chamber. In Washington County, tourism is a $700 million a year business that employs approximately 6,000 people. It's one of our major industries. Of course, it's also been affected by the COVID-19 emergency. And this morning, we welcome Lloyd Corder, president and CEO of CorCom, and Kara Buggy, director of operations for CorCom, to talk about a recent study that the Washington County Tourism Promotion Agency recently commissioned to look at the effects of the COVID-19 emergency in the county, as well as its impact on tourism. Good morning, Lloyd and Kara.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you very much for being with us. We certainly appreciate it. And we wanted to talk this morning about the study that the Washington County Tourism Promotion Agency commissioned on tourism and the impacts of COVID-19 in Washington County. I know you guys have done a great job in that study, and I know that our participants this morning would be very interested in its results.
All right, thank you. Should I get started now? We're good to go? Start sharing some findings.
Yeah, we'd love to have you start.
All right, let me do a screen share quickly. And as I'm doing that, telling the viewers here, good morning and welcome. As Jeff said, my name is Lloyd Corder, and our firm is here in Pittsburgh. I'm also on the faculty at Carnegie Mellon University and also at the University of Pittsburgh. So we practice what we teach and teach what we practice. But we run a lot of surveys and we've run a lot on COVID-19. So this is a very special one for us, and we're very excited by it. What we have is a slide deck here that will be provided to you following the briefing this morning. And I wanted to spend just a few moments on what this study is and some of the key findings. This, we entitled this study, Reopening Washington County. And it's not only about the assets, but there are a number of questions about local businesses that may be of interest to you as well. And what we ended up doing on this study was we talked to 1,219 people. This was an online study, and we have a panel of people from Western Pennsylvania that we used for part of it. And then the Washington County Tourism Promotion Agency has a contact list of people who have expressed interest. They have several thousand that have expressed interest in tourism in Washington County, so we invited some of them to participate as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to skip the executive summary, which are these couple of slides, and just share with you a few of the key graphics, if you will. And this first section is on the impact of COVID-19 on travel and in-person business support. And this is, if you will, more of the psychology of where we think people are. Now, please remember, this study was conducted between May 13th and May 20th, so just a couple weeks ago. And where it's appropriate, I'll show you where I think their thinking is now, because they projected out just a little bit in a couple areas. But basically, the overall conclusion of these next few slides is here at the top, is that consumers are divided on how long it will take for Washington County tourism to return, number one. But many of them think it's safe to start doing outdoor activities like biking and hiking right now. So let's take a look at some of these. One of the first questions we asked was, compared to the other regions, how does Washington County stack up? And the way my slides are set up so you can understand them, I'll have a couple key conclusions or sub-conclusions at the top, the question, and then the big blue bar is everybody. And then what we did was the orange colored bar. Those are people that live within 20 miles. And one of the themes that you're going to see in this, throughout this survey, is the people that live closer. In other words, the customers that live right around where you are operating have a different attitude on many of the questions, and they want to support you more aggressively, and they want to get started, and they think it's safer, and a whole bunch of other ones. The lighter blue bar are people that live further than 20 miles, so more of a regional market, if you will. So if we look at this first slide, then what was the impact? We have about half, 53%, saying it's been about the same, about a third saying it's been less in other areas, practically no one saying it's worse. So that's good news. They don't think Western Pennsylvania has been hit as badly. Now, when we how long is it going to take for this COVID-19 to subside? If you look at the bottom, the overall is a 4.0, which means 3 to 4 weeks. So we have on average at least half of the population here, or approaching close to it, thinking that it's pretty well finished right now. However, look at the right side of the graph. You have a number of people, 1 to 2 months, 3 to 4 months, 6 months or more. You're going to have some people that think it's still going to go on for months on end. So there's quite a bit of disagreement in terms of what people are thinking. If we look at one of these other questions was, I think this is one of the key questions that is out there and defines everything. I call them 3 buckets. We have a 1 to 5 scale here on how worried are they about being exposed to COVID-19. The 5 and the 4 are very worried. We add that together, we got a third of the people are scared. We got a third that are in the middle that are taking a wait and see, and then we've got a third on the other side that think it was silliness that we even shut down. And it's fascinating. We've run many surveys on this for other organizations, and we're seeing about the same sort of breakdown in 3 buckets. And I think you're going to see this same bucket with your customers for your businesses. You'll have some that will come in, they don't even want to wear a mask, they're sick and tired of this, they're ready to go. You'll have a third that are taking a wait and see, and you'll have a third that you're really going to have to work at to get them to re-engage. That's what I think is happening overall on this. A couple other ones, what about their business plans? I know this is important in a lot of, not only for tourism, but for the local businesses that come to eat at the restaurants and support the hotels and so forth. We have 72% saying they've been impacted. When you ask them how, look at that. They canceled completely or they reduced their travel plans. Now, I think if you get into some areas, some of the resorts and so forth, I've been hearing nationally are starting to regain a little bit. And some of these people that were taking a wait and see are coming back and scheduling, but it's still more or less decimated from our vantage point. Now, what's driving their thinking on travel? This question asks, how much do each of these factors influence? And I know this is a little bit complicated, but look at the top bar there. There's 53%, and that's saying had a great impact versus 23 and then 8%, the darkest blue bars on the top of each area. What this slide is showing is that the coronavirus or COVID-19 is what's in people's heads. That's what's scaring them. Concerns about the economy or unemployment or transportation cost or what, those are basically non-factors in terms of deciding. What they're saying is, are they going to get the coronavirus? Now, we've also run a number of focus groups for other organizations on this recently. And what I can tell you is the psyche is, part of it's they're worried about their own health, but probably 2, 3, 5, 10 times more important, they're worried about inadvertently making someone else sick. And if that person happened to get sick or die, it's a devastating mindset for them. So a lot of people are worried on that front. So this coronavirus is not just, I might catch it and get sick. It's, I might be giving it to somebody and I don't even know it. So we've heard a lot of those kind of issues. Now, one of the things we've been trying to figure out is who has the most credibility to say, hey, it's safe to come home. And I know we've had politicians and so forth debating and all of this, but pretty consistently, we're seeing what people would perceive as relatively independent government organizations like the CDC or the federal government or health experts that hopefully are not playing too much politics. Those are the ones that they are thinking are most credible. So this graph is more like a golf score from low to high. Next to that would be the state health department. Then they would start seeing social distancing, relax, so forth, all the way over to the far side. Well, if they saw like major attractions like Disney, for example, reopen, would that matter to them? To a lot of people, no. They don't really care about that. They want the health experts' opinions.
So Lloyd, what that's saying is that most people are following the advice of the CDC or other health officials within the state on their own actions for COVID.
Yes, and we've asked, I believe we've asked that in this questionnaire, and we've asked it in a lot of other ones about what impact is the social distancing and staying home and so forth have, and have people been complying? And many of them say that they are complying, they think it's having a positive impact and so forth. So yes, they're waiting for the CDC and some other health experts, but I think also, Jeff, as the summer goes on, I don't have all of the data on this yet, but I think people are going to start getting frustrated. They're like, you know, it's like, why do we continue to wear a mask? It's 90 degrees out. I can't breathe. Or what? You know, you're going to hear more and more of this as people learn about this. But it's basically the health experts and not so much the government experts they're caring about.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. A couple other conclusions in this area. So when do they think it would be safe to start doing activities, and what are they? So this is, again, the lower the number, the more immediate. So if you look at the left, things like the biking and the golf courses, those are already out there. Now this survey is about a month old. So if we look at things like outlet malls, a lot of folks are saying that's about ready. Breweries and distilleries, that should be coming online here in the next week or two if we're saying these are 100% accurate. Then the indoor malls, so we see more and more of them. The restaurants, we're just seeing those starting to open up in some areas, so that's on track with what folks were thinking. Then after that, the outdoor festivals, the museums, the movie theaters, and the indoors or concerts, the symphonies and so forth, they're basically scheduled to go last. People seem to have, you know, that's a confined space, so they'd have a little more trouble believing that would be safe for them. All right, then to, and I know I'm going quickly here, and I'll be happy to take questions here in a moment, but the second area I wanted to share some data with was their likelihood to visit Washington County. And as we just saw with the outdoor activities, we see some more of that in this section, that they want to do the outdoor activities and the shopping, but not so much the other attractions unless they're coming in the later fall. So I don't think it's that they don't want to do them at all, it's the timing of them. So if we look at this one, how many folks have traveled to Washington County for a tourism or promotion issue of some kind? We had about 2 in 5, or 43% have traveled for some reason. And why did they visit? It was family, or they live here. Notice the orange bar is quite a bit bigger on they visited a family, they live here, and they work there. So those are, again, the people that are less than 20 miles. We would expect that on a number of the responses. Now, what about the number of COVID cases in Washington County? Was anybody aware of those? The locals, 91%. Are saying that it's had a lower impact than other parts. So I think your locals are thinking it's much safer already. So to me, that's very good news. And very few of them think it's worse than anywhere else. What are they likely to visit? These slides here, I'm going to go through these and not spend a lot of time, but these are just different categories. And so when we look at recreation, the parks, Mingo Park, hiking, farm tours, so forth, you're getting a lot of folks that are interested in this, boating, golfing, so forth. So this is the outdoor stuff. This scores the best on the survey. And look at the orange bar where you've got 80, 90% of your local consumers are ready to do this. So I think the strategy should be start local, best you can, get it going, and then focus on your regional for many of these issues. We come over here, this is the shopping one. So the outlet malls, we've got 80% of the locals are interested in doing that. We've got the small towns and antique shopping, and then the Washington Crown Center. Again, you've got half or more of the locals want to start doing this, and they think it's safe to get moving on.
So Lloyd, what it appears is that many people taking this survey feel more comfortable doing outside activities right now. I would assume because of the kind of natural social distancing that would go on in an outdoor activity. Is that pretty much correct?
That's correct. Yes, and if it's a closed area where there's a lot of people, then they were a little bit more apprehensive about it. And again, we've got to go back to our scale where we've got the 3 buckets. Those that think the lockdown was silliness, well, they're going to be, well, they don't really care. They'll do any of it. Where you've got the wait and see, I think, is the biggest part of it. And then you still have about a third of them that no matter what, they're, I don't know, other than the CDC, a virus or a, a shot you can take to be cured, a vaccine, and daily testing. I mean, some of the bar is so high, I don't think you're going to reach some of those people. But the 2/3, I think, is the group to go after first, that are more in the middle or already open to coming.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So when we look at the wineries and the distilleries and so forth, we've got just less than half of the folks overall are interested in doing that. And again, the locals are much more interested to start with. Then what about museums? We're seeing this tick down a little bit here. So they're not, some people aren't quite ready, but others are. So the trolley museum and so forth, we got 40%, 44% would be interested in doing something like that. And then what about the casinos or music venues? Again, these are falling down. So these are going to be a little bit more compact. There's going to be more people there, at least this is in their heads, it would be that way. So there seems to be less interest and energy in these sorts of activities. And of course, I realize we're asking this as a perspective question. Some people that may not gamble, well, it doesn't even matter, but just in general, of all of the activities out there, fewer seem interested in these versus the outdoor activities to start. Now, what about festivals, later festivals? If you'll notice on this chart, we have some that are happening in August all the way through September. And what's fascinating to me is it more or less grows the further away from today we get. So the National Pike and Steam Gas Horse Show, we've got 30% of the locals, which is in early August, saying they'd have pretty good interest in that. The Washington County Agricultural Fair, who actually one of my CMU groups had done some work for, and we've done some polling for you, Jeff, of them last year. There are a lot more locals there, about half the group saying they're interested, all the way over to the Covered Bridge Festival, which I know is one of your marquee events, and so many people really enjoy that. You've got over half of the locals saying that they'd be very interested in doing that, and that one's in late September. So I think what's, yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Again, later into the fall, where people perhaps feel a little more comfortable and have a better outlook that it's eventually going to subside more.
Right, and one of the things that I'm not saying, but I think is implied here is we've given everybody a chance for the last 3 months or so to retrain themselves. And I know Carrick, one of my staff members, gave this example recently, went to a restaurant for the first time a couple days ago and said, this is weird. This is what it's like to eat out. I'd completely forgotten about it. So I think people are going to have to be retrained. I don't think you can just say, hey, our festival's on, you know, same as last year, just show up. I think people are going to have to be encouraged. And if you look at one of our main clients is, we do a lot of work for UPMC, the hospital and healthcare system and so forth. But if you watch their ads, every one of their ads is based on the research we're doing. So they're showing people spraying down bottles of cleaning and wearing masks and, hey, we're open. And they've been very, very, very aggressive about that opening message, and they are exceeding their targets. So if you know anything about healthcare, you've got to be 90 to 100% capacity to basically be whole. And they're quickly approaching that. So I think it is possible, but they've of course, you know, invested in the marketing to get people to come back. I think every business on some level, and with the Chamber's help, is going to have to be doing that. So we have just a couple more here, and then I can take any specific questions.
Sure, and that's a good point, Lloyd. I would like to remind our participants that feel free to submit your questions with the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then these are some of the fall festivals. These are getting later into October. So to your point, Jeff, look at this. They continue to grow with nearly, you know, on all of those people expressing interest, especially the locals, but not that different. I mean, if you got a 20, 30, 40% of the regional folks, you know, we look at the population. If all that people showed up through your marketing and your efforts and so forth, those would be some pretty well-attended events. And then what about weekend getaway packages? This is one of the ideas we tested. And what about if we package some things with like a bed and breakfast or an overnight accommodation and biking and so forth? And you've got a pretty good sliver here. You've got 25% saying they're very interested, a third saying they're somewhat interested. So again, I think this speaks to marketing. This is a promotion. People are looking for things to do if it's safe. And this is a promotion you offered. According to this research, it has a pretty good chance of doing well. What about receiving promotional information about all of these different deals? So yes, you're going to need to do marketing. Will anybody pay attention to it, and what do they want to see? So deals for travel, that's tops overall. So I think one out of every two are interested in that. But what about ways to support the local businesses? You've got 48% of the folks in Washington County saying they want to be able to do that. And so what's exciting to me is, you know, support the local businesses. I think if you're open and you ask them and you're, you know, treating them well and so forth, people want to see you successful. They would come out and start to patronize that. Same way with the delivery and takeout. And I know some restaurants are doing that, but especially the locals. You've got nearly half of the folks saying they're trying to do that to help keep those businesses going. And then these go on down a little bit lower, whether purchasing merchandise, so forth. So these, again, are part of that same question, fewer percentages, but still some possible strategies here. Now, what about a big idea we tested, which was basically, is there a way to create a good housekeeping seal of approval that said, based on a set of standards from local health organizations or hospitals or somewhere, that you would have a seal on your business that says, basically, we are following the COVID guidelines and so forth? Would that simplify people's decisions so they didn't have to say, well, I don't know, is this place safe? Is it not safe? What's happening? So they didn't have to debate about every store, every business they went to. Could we do an umbrella piece? And according to this has some, in my opinion, some real juice. You have almost 2/3 of the people saying they would be highly influenced by that. Now, I realize there may be some mechanical and legal and other issues around that, but one of the ideas we did want to test was, what if the chamber or someone like yourselves got behind this and had this program that said these people are up to a certain standard of how they're cleaning and what their techniques are and so on and so forth. If they were following those procedures, you've got a lot of consumers saying, wow, that made me even more willing to go. So I think that's very good news too. Why did they like this certification idea, so many of them? The people that said that they did, was it would make me feel safe and comfortable. You have over half the people saying that. It would show that the business is taking this seriously. And then some people are like, well, I don't know about the certificate, or not very concerned, or they still have some problems. We're not going to get everybody on any of these, but I still think that might be a strategy that could be effective. Now, where do they get their travel information? Interesting. I know there's a lot of marketing going on, and sometimes it's email or direct mail and so forth, but it's friends and family, the websites that they're researching, social media, emails from the venues. So a lot of this is venue driven or business driven. So in thinking about the businesses, what this means to me is, if you open your business and people say, wow, this was a great experience and I felt safe and I was able to get what I want, they'll talk to their friends, they'll start coming back. If you're using that on your social media, your websites, talking about how you're handling the COVID situation or the safety and so forth, I think those kind of messages would really be helpful for many people. And then, of course, the social media. And I know one of the things we're doing for you now, Jeff, is I have a Carnegie Mellon University group of students, about 10 students, working on strategies to try to help tourism destinations reopen. And they're doing a lot of extra research and thinking. And some of the ideas will be around social media. Could we create Instagram-worthy sites at different places where people are like, man, I got to have that screenshot, or I've got to have that picture there, and it could be outside or wherever, and you know, what could those be? So we've got a lot of ideas to further this thinking, but I think the interesting part is it's more personal driven than mass media driven in terms of what they're saying would influence them. And then, Jeff, I'm going to end it at this point. We have a respondent profile that people can go back and look at, but I would be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, we got a few great questions, Lloyd, and Kara, if you don't mind. The first one was, how does the age of the respondents factor into the results?
Well, Jeff, that's a great question. Basically, from some of the deeper dive, we looked at that data. The people that are older and more at risk are the ones that are going to be likely to be in that cautious, I'm not sure it's safe to go out to interact phase. When you have some of the, and that's not everybody, but some of the younger ones are going to be in the I'm ready to go, or they're more independent thinking. But in general, I'd say you're going to have, from what I've seen in those drill downs, the older folks are more in that cautious category. So you're going to have to work a little bit more to prove that it's safe and so forth on that one.
Now, as you know, Washington County entered the green phase about a week ago. Do you think going into the green phase has encouraged more people to go out and visit our tourism assets and restaurants and things of that nature? And do you think that could change any of the study moving forward, or any of the results, I should say, of the study moving forward, between when you first took the information and now going green?
I think that going green helps a little bit, but just somebody randomly saying we're changing colors or whatever is not, I don't think it's enough to motivate people completely. I still think you have to market. If I refer to the UPMC case history, I mean, if you, without getting too far into it, even specific messages about their emergency rooms and so forth. I mean, we've done whole studies on why is it safe, not safe to go there? How do we talk about it? Whatever. And you'll see complete messages on there. So if you're not marketing to reopen, it's going to be a few people might fumble in or stumble in, but it's like I heard, I can't tell you the number of people I've heard saying, even when we're running focus groups, they're saying the same thing. Wow, I went to the hospital. You can't believe they make you wait out in the lobby, or they make you wait out in your car. Then you come in, there's nobody in there. They made me wear a mask. All the doctors and staff wearing a mask. Man, they're scrubbing everything all the time. And other people are saying, really? I didn't know that. Oh, I guess they're getting discovered that it's safe to go back. I think that has to be with your businesses as well. What, telling people, showing them, explaining. And I know not everybody has a massive marketing budget, but if you could email the customers or have a post about it or social media, I think it's going to take some work to A, retrain them, and B, convince them they're safe.
Well, we have another very similar question. As you know, yesterday, the Pennsylvania General Assembly passed a joint resolution basically attempting to override the governor's emergency declaration. Do you think that'll have any impact, if that's successful, do you think that'll have any impact on people's perceptions? We just saw a slide that said they tend to listen more to health experts. Do you think that will have any type of reaction, encouraging people to go out more, or do you think it'll stick to the third discussion we've had earlier?
Well, that's a fascinating question. I don't know if I have an exact answer, but I think what's going to happen is as people learn about the true impact, did we really need to shut down our economy for this? Did it really save people? Most people are agreeing that it did. How long do we have to let this go on? How does the virus really transmit? And if everybody's wearing a mask, is there even a risk of catching this thing? So I think the frustration is going to build, and I think it is connected a little bit politically, because we've seen through other research studies that if someone, basically what they watch on cable news influences their opinions about the shutdown and the virus. So if they're watching CNN and MSNBC and they're listening to all of those stories, they're like, oh my goodness, we're very lucky we're even alive. We've got to be very, very careful. They're listening to somebody like Fox News, they're like, what is this, a conspiracy? They're trying to ruin our country or what? I mean, so I think a lot of that's going on, and it's my understanding that the governor and the legislature are from different parties. So I would suspect that's a microcosm of what we're seeing on the national level.
Well, thank you, Lloyd. And one thing I think that's very interesting is that just recently, and you hinted around at this, that the Tourism Promotion Agency and your group and CMU students have engaged in yet another project to really look at tourism and help our tourism assets to create some good strategies to start over and to start again in their reopening process. May we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're just getting that started now. Part of that will be the students trying to interview and research with the executive directors and even some of their staff, because this survey is kind of a general broad brushed approach. Some of the businesses and some of the tourism assets, they may have their own list of customers or issues or topics. And I mean, one of the things we tell everybody, we believe in feedback. So asking some of these questions of those groups to see if their responses are different would be powerful. Some of the students are also trying to benchmark what other attractions are doing. And as you know, July 1st, I believe it is, a lot of the museums and so forth are going to be planning to start to open because they follow some of the leaders and the foundations and, for example, the Heinz History Center. And so when some of the big guns go, then the smaller ones follow along, at least in the Pittsburgh region, and I would suspect it's the same in the Washington County region. So what we're hopeful is that we can really think through this, think through some social media strategies, think through some marketing strategies, realizing there's most organizations don't have, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest in marketing, but what can they do smartly? I think they've got to do something. You've got to have a plan. It's got to be visible, that we're safe. You know, people seeing that you're scrubbing stuff or whatever, that's great. Okay, it's okay for me to be here. But then you've got to remind them, hey, come in and support us or go get your stuff.
Well, Lloyd, it is 8:30 and we appreciate your time. And please know that the Tourism Agency and Chamber have worked with CorCom on several important projects for Washington County. We always appreciate your partnership in CorCom. You do a great job for us. Let me thank again Lloyd Corder and Kara Buggy from CorCom for being with us this morning and sharing the results of this great study. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
I'd also like to thank the Washington County Tourism Promotion Agency for sponsoring this morning's event. Thank you very much for the good work that you do in Washington County. And finally, on July 14th, the tourism agency will be partnering with Miles Media and Visit Pittsburgh for a Google My Destination seminar, which will allow our tourism assets and others that are interested to learn how to maximize their Google destinations and Google presence on the internet. It's a great topic. We think you'd be very interested in it. Again, you'll receive information about it soon, but that'll be on July 14th. Thank you for being with us again this morning for our morning briefing. I'm Jeff Catula, President of the Washington County Chamber of Commerce, wishing you a great day.